thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your discipline and for bringing us together this morning. It could be and would have been expected if we had canceled the meeting, given all our attention that's needed for our districts and for the city. And so I thank you for bringing us together this morning. I want to publicly thank Herb Wesson for his comments at the end of our last meeting. They were so profound and so spot on. They reflected not only the life of African-American men in this nation, but I and others in my community have grown up with the same type of notice by our parents and our families about our interactions with the law enforcement community. And so I want to thank him for that. I want to differ with you for a bit. And I want to say that the activities of yesterday and what we've seen the last few days is anarchy is to be very generous to the looters and very offensive to the anarchists. What we saw and have seen, if we parse it out, is there are peaceful protests, which we of course support. There is a righteous cause, which we of course support. You and I talked about this last night. Your history is rich in that tradition. But as I said last week, the council's history is very rich in its struggle for social justice in the city, in the state, in this nation. So it's being kind to looters to say that they are anarchists. They are not. They are looters. They are what we used to call the lumpen proletariat. They are exploiting this moment and this circumstance. And they're not just stealing products from local stores, but they're stealing jobs. Those 88 buildings that were destroyed on Melrose reflect jobs that working men and women do. They reflect jobs that immigrants do late at night when nobody else sees them, cleaning those buildings. They reflect the retail jobs that provide training so that then those people who work there can move up in those industries. They reflect a location where the sewers in downtown Los Angeles are the ones in Van Nuys, like your mother, the ones in downtown LA, like my mother. Those products that they make are sold in those buildings on Melrose. And so when they burn down those buildings, they're not anarchists. They're more what we would say lumpen proletariats. They're looters. And so they're stealing not just jobs, but they're stealing hope from our communities. And in addition to that, particularly this city with so many immigrants, they're stealing hope and opportunity. But they're also, probably the most egregious thing that they're doing is that they're stealing attention away from the righteous cause of violence against Black men in this nation and police brutality. They're taking attention and time away from that. They're taking attention and time away from COVID-19 and what needs to be done to rebuild our city and our economy. And in doing that, they don't realize that they're also creating unintended consequences. For example, in the middle of all this, if you paid attention, the president yesterday essentially announced a state of siege. He had this big theatric presentation yesterday where they attacked peaceful demonstrators, and they had a show of force, a show of, in his lingo, domination of the streets. This is a very, very dangerous development. This is something that we all need to be very focused on and pay appropriate attention to. This was just short of a declaration of martial law. We need to be very careful about that. We need to be very disciplined during this time period. We need to know, what is it that we should be doing? What are the immediate things we should be doing? What should the president have called for yesterday? I think immediately the first thing, if we weren't busy trying to sweep up the damages done in Santa Monica or Melrose, Van Nuys, throughout this city and this region, we immediately should all be together and calling for the arrest and the prosecution, the conviction of those who created this egregious crime, a crime seen throughout the world. We should be focused our attention on police reform, and we should be focused on aiding and healing those who are victims of police brutality. That's what we should be doing immediately. But we can't if we're taking a brush and cleaning up our neighborhoods. We should also be focused on stopping Donald Trump, because he has been a purveyor of this type of hate and division. He is not prepared for the presidency, nor has he ever been. And he is provoking this. But the danger of that is that he plays to not just his base, but to voters in suburbia America, voters in Wisconsin or Pennsylvania or Michigan, those critical states. And we have to be very diligent, very disciplined, very careful, because we will end up with Donald Trump again. We need to be actually focused on what the work is of this city and of this nation, bridging the gap between the divide of wealth and poverty. That's what we need to be doing. We need to be focused on a comprehensive housing plan, on economic development, on creating public space, art, and culture for our city. That's the work of our council. And yet we can't do that if we are working with a brush, with a mop, with gloves on to pick up broken glass in each of our neighborhoods. And so that's what's being stolen from us by these so-called looters, by these what we used to call lumpen proletariats, by these people who you have been generous to label anarchists as if they had some coherent political strategy and perspective. They do not. They are a criminal element. They should not be glorified. They should not be. They should not be worthy. They are not worthy of the attention they have taken away from both the cause of George Floyd and of the cause of pursuit of dignity and peace and justice for the residents and people that we are honored to serve here in this great city and for our great nation. Thank you.
Thank you.